Welcome. I have with me Laura Spiller, PhD, Dr. Laura, I guess. She is a psychologist specializing in relationship therapy and the founder of PractiSage Therapist Collective, which is a shared workspace for therapists in Houston. And Laura was in our co-working startup school, but I have not gotten the updates on her opening and how things are going since. So I'm so excited to hear all the details. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you and just to thank you for the help that the co-working startup school provided and the ongoing support of your Facebook community and, even the emails here and there. It's been very appreciated support.
Yeah.
Meaningful.
Business is hard and mentally and in so many ways. And so thank goodness we all have each other. Okay, so
Yeah.
I don't think I really know your co-working story. So tell us like just a little bit about your professional background and when did you wake up
Mhm.
and say, I need to make a shared workspace for therapists?
Well, I've always admired entrepreneurship and loved the idea of trying to think about what do people need and how can I be creative and develop something that meets those needs? Just in general, admired that. I think that's cool. Looked for ways to be able to enter that space. It really pushed me over the edge to start thinking more about what other ways I can use my brain and really leading up to, but also the beginning of the pandemic as a relationship therapist. The
Right. I
beginning
didn't
of
even
the,
think about what that would have meant for you.
I mean,
Yeah.
yes. So in the beginning of the pandemic, people were suddenly with their partners 24/7. And
Everybody in the world was
also,
like, can I stay married to this person? I don't
exactly.
know.
Oh, and then like if you had kids, you're having to figure out like who is going to monitor their schooling, do the schooling. If you've got dual careers, people were really in chaos. How
A
do we
lot of stuff.
manage dual careers? How do we do
Yeah.
all this? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I was, of course, like, well, I guess I'm home and I don't have anything else to do. And all these people are asking for help. So
Desperate.
I said yes and got to a point where I think I had like 35 sessions in 1 week and just was realizing, okay, wait,
Oh
I
my
cannot,
God.
this is not sustainable.
Right.
And
You're
it
on
really helped
Zoom
me.
like literally all day, every
Oh,
day. Just
yes, yes.
trying to going insane while trying to keep other people safe.
Well, right. I mean, in the world, yeah, going bananas are all around us. And
Yeah.
I've got my 4 kids and
Oh
two
my gosh,
dogs.
you have
And,
four kids. I didn't know you have four. You have your
well, I
four.
have two, and my two older stepchildren also came home and lived with us during the pandemic. So yeah, we had a
Yeah.
completely full house.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, just all the stuff. And that's what I was thinking. Like, I would love, I can't do full-time couples therapy. It's just too much. I've got lots of interest in how to help therapists and be creative. I need to figure out some ways to scale back on the therapy and use my brain and figure out how to do something else in addition. And I did think about a group practice. That's something that therapists who are entrepreneurial often do. And at the time, just didn't really feel comfortable. Somehow that just didn't feel right. But led me to think, what do therapists need to be successful? And, really had the thought that sometimes therapists, when you join a group practice, you often are getting quite a bit of your fee over to the group practice. You're really working hard, but you're building somebody else's practice. So I wanted to help those who were on their own in solo private practice. How do they create a practice that's sustainable for them, that meets their life values, and give them the supports to do that? Help them build their practice.
Yeah.
Right. That was one of my hesitations with the group practice because they're kind of building, you're building somebody else's practice there.
Yeah.
Yeah, to build your practice. So, that's kind of one of the mission of PractiSage to support therapists to grow, to start, grow, and right size their practice for their values, for their life, and in a way that's sustainable. And I think that the community piece is a really important part of sustainability.
Yeah. Because you have this sort of entrepreneurial interest, but you have a PhD. So you've done a lot of training, a lot of like sort of, by the book career, but you have this like, drive to be entrepreneurial. Other therapists may not so much, but want to be in private practice. And so that's kind of part of the role I'm guessing you felt like you could fill because because it is like starting a business. When you go out on your own, you have to
Yes.
get clients, you have to handle the billing, and maybe you're not taking insurance. There's just all those things that you have to manage that is like having your own mini business. But many
Yeah, it
therapists
is.
like would maybe rather ignore those pieces and just practice. So it's kind of a cool, like to your point, like what do they need? Well, maybe they need like, yeah, the business stuff so that they can practice and be comfortable going out on their own. But therapists, if they bill through insurance, they're getting paid a lot less, right? So
But they don't have to do as much marketing if you're being paid by insurance. So if you take
yeah,
insurance, you
so then,
often
yeah,
can see a few more clients because you're not having to give time over to
yeah,
the
customer acquisition,
marketing
basically,
as
yeah,
much, right?
yeah,
As much.
okay.
But generally, yes, you can make more as a private pay therapist than when you're taking insurance.
And do any of the therapists that are part of your space, or is the space sort of the space membership the same as the collective, or is the collective something different?
So the collective is the umbrella, and within that, there is an online community that therapists in Texas can join for the support, the relationships, the referral network, for the education in terms of practice building, practice sustainability. And then there's also the spaces. And so any members of the spaces are automatically members of the community. So that
Okay.
comes along with your space membership. But there are people in other parts of Texas or in Houston who office in other places who don't use the space but are members of the community.
Okay. And you run the community?
Yes.
Okay. So did
Yeah.
you do that before you started the space, or did you start both at once?
I launched the community over a year ago in November, so it's been a year.
Okay.
Yes.
And then you just opened in May.
The space in May.
Physical space. Okay. So
In May,
yes, you're
yeah.
like, while I'm taking all this time to sign a lease and do construction,
Right.
start this online community. That's
Yes.
so interesting. And was the goal for the online community to be kind of its own? Did you think it would feed the space, or did you just think it was important to have both? Like, how were you thinking about?
Definitely thought it was important to have both.
Yeah.
Because that's part of the need, right? I mean, when I think about practice sustainability, and one of the challenges is it's very isolating if you're in solo private practice. And even more so now that many therapists do at least part of it online.
Yeah.
And so there really is a need for connection, support, community. And that was an important part of what I wanted to create.
Doing the online piece. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's sort of starting two things at once, because having an online community has its own things you have to learn in it, and then opening the physical space. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me more about how you decided, like, I should have a physical space. I'm going to start this physical business to help other therapists.
Yeah, thinking about what people need, that they actually do need. I guess part of my thought was that the swing to online, we were already the glow was fading of how wonderful that is, and I think that that's continuing. I'm definitely hearing from the people in the community that they're getting more and more requests for in-person services, and so, but that we want to do it differently than in the past. That it's not, it's unrealistic for most therapists to need a full-time office. Even people who are full-time probably don't do more than 3 days of in-person. Maybe there may be some who are really, really helpful practices who might use their office full-time, but I just think that the future is going to be shared office space for therapists, because it really doesn't make sense to have that overhead.
Right. It's totally impractical. Or the other solution is like they find someone to share with, but then, you have to sort of coordinate on your own the schedule. And then in my experience, they're usually dumpy spaces.
Yeah. And they're yeah. Well, most therapists, when we're starting out, we don't have a lot of plans to be able to
Totally. Right.
We're having to, kind of go to figure out which friends will donate furniture to us,
Right.
know.
Totally. Yeah. You need a physical space, but you can't overinvest in it, because it's just right. It totally makes sense. Yeah.
And especially when you're starting up, it takes a while to build your caseload. It's, it's definitely.
Yeah. So to be paying that fixed cost of rent and trying to build your business, that's an added stress. Yeah.
And then we also have the post-COVID trauma for so many of us of investing in that office space and then having it be a very nice holding place for furniture for about 18 months.
Right. Which you probably is a stress that you carry that burden for everyone else at this
Yes.
point.
And I have to say, yeah, it is, there is that fear of like, oh no, people, that may happen, but it definitely doesn't done.
Okay. So we were pre-chatting about, you decided to look for us. You joined the startup school. You decided to look for a space. It took much longer than you thought, but you got a great space. You needed parking. I remember there were like requirements you were trying to figure out that you needed, which is so important because how long is your lease? Is it how many
7 years?
7 years. Yeah. It's got to be right.
Yeah. And I'm selling convenience. I'm selling comfort. Right? So you really want it to meet the needs of the therapist and their clients. And one of that is, yes, a sufficient parking. In Houston, that was really an issue. I do have 4,000 square feet divided into 11 offices. And then I have a lounge area where people can come and work, that members can have any access to that whenever it's available to be able to do notes or just get out of their house and do some work without having to reserve
or get out of the office, like if they're not seeing clients, but they just want to be in there.
They don't have to pay for the office. They don't have to pay extra for the lounge. They would have to pay for the office. So so they can use that space. But a lot of places would give you 4 spaces per 1,000 square feet. And, if I'm going to have 8 clients this hour, 8 clients coming in the next hour, potentially 8 therapists, I mean, that's a way more parking than just, the 16 spaces they would allot. And then a lot of times there was, just definitely that was a big barrier to a lot of places was sufficient parking. And the other big barrier was therapists often work evenings and weekends.
Right.
So we need air conditioning.
Oh, the after hours. You know what? That's so funny. I always forget that's an issue until I look at somebody's lease and we're talking about events or it's like, oh, right. The whole building.
$50 an hour for air conditioning.
Yep.
Right. I mean, that's not going to work. So
and
I had to
find in Houston. So you need, yes.
Basically March to, November. I mean, it was 82 degrees yesterday.
Yeah.
So we need, it's December, we need air conditioning a lot of the year. So I was able to find a building that let me install a supplemental HVAC system.
Okay, great. Okay.
For the city.
Yep. And they paid for a lot of the build out because I remember that was a huge bonus. So you have 4,000 square feet and it took some time to get the deal done and get the construction done. But they basically built, and the fact that they were building something that's reasonably office dense.
Yes.
Yeah. Were the offices existing or was it a shell space that you?
It was existing. I added 2 offices. I moved some walls, but we were able to use some of the original build out. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect.
Which is good. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So that was, and definitely got help with, I mean, I did hire an architect but I also, was able to use the building architect also for kind of some of the more detailed plans.
Okay. And then did you design the space yourself?
I had hired an architect to help design to do all the space planning and actually kind of help think about like, I didn't want just the really basic look for an office building. So he's pretty creative and had worked with me in a previous office. And so I was able to do a layout that kind of had a little bit of, I don't know, spark to it, a little bit different than just straight hallways. And then I did hire an interior decorator for the space because that's not my area of expertise.
Yeah.
But one of the things that you recommended in the startup school that I think is the lesson I learned that I would have done. I mean, we ended up ordering almost everything from just 2 stores. And I think in the future, if I do another space, I will actually use the design planning for those stores because that's one of the things that you had recommended, that it was a way to save money. And in the long run, I mean, it's just a ton of startup costs. So I think I really could have met the same goal, but saved money using the design services for those. From those companies.
Totally an option. Well, you did a lot of things right. I mean, using a space that needed minimal build out and then getting, support from the landlord and getting the parking you need, those things are going to serve you for a long time. Okay. So tell me so your plans are mostly like buckets of hours. Is that right? So nobody has a dedicated office space.
There's no dedicated office space. That's correct. I I did a lot of research, and again, everything co-working Facebook group is great for when you're trying to evaluate the different co-working software platforms and trying to figure out. I use Office R&D, but I think there's a lot of good ones that to meet the needs. But yeah, I had to figure out one that would allow recurring bookings, flexible cancellation schedule that I could sort of create. Yeah, and makes it really pretty easy for people to book their spaces.
So a member can say, well, I see patients, 1 to 4 on Thursdays, and they can kind of book those slots out so that, okay.
Yeah, for up to 3 months, I think.
Okay,
yeah.
Got it. And that works. You have enough, you kind of are figuring out inventory.
So far it's working. Yeah. I mean, I can see that's my next logistical challenge. We're not quite there where it's been an issue, but I can see it finally, which is great,
Yeah. A good
down
problem
the road
to
that I'm
have
going
to
to
figure out.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have. I'm going to have to think about, what percent occupancy is sort of full in the sense that it allows the flexibility that I'm selling, right? I mean, I'm trying to say, hey, this is flexible office space that if you need an hour, you should be able to find it. So I'm thinking that's probably around 70% occupation.
Yeah. And then you might have to get into dynamic pricing. I'm guessing there are times of day that is more expensive than, or sorry, in more demand, like after school hours and,
Yes. Yeah. And then I probably will have to, right now I give a bucket of hours. I'm like, if you have a half day plan, you get 17 hours a month. If you have a day plan, you get like 34 hours a month. But I think at some point I am going to have to say, like, this is your day.
Yeah.
This is your half day. And right now I kind of haven't done that, but I believe in trial and error.
I was going to say, you're learning, right? Sometimes you have to just do it
to figure out what works hard. Yeah, I don't think that, my brain just can't project into the future and kind of figure out exactly what's needed.
Totally. Yeah. Okay, so you have not even been open a year. Any like major surprises yet that, you just mentioned one thing, like, oh, maybe I'd use the design services from a furniture company. Anything else that you're like, oh, I didn't see that coming?
I think it really helped to do. I mean, the co-working school helped a lot to be able to know what to expect and what to prepare for. I mean, the timing of the furniture delivery and the base build out completion was really challenging. And so I ended up having to put the furniture in storage because the space wasn't ready yet. And I don't know what to really learn from that because other than flexibility.
I was going to say, right. Other than to know that the logistics are always going to be a little bit challenging. Yeah. Although some furniture vendors will hold it for you and kind of manage that piece of it, knowing that a build out is unpredictable. Yeah.
We did have a mix of that. Yeah. But it was, And then, one thing I didn't know is sort of that I would look at in the future too is, the rules of the building. I mean, I think I had always officed in offices that were owned by individual landlords with that were pretty flexible. And so, I kind of came into a high rise and I'm learning a lot about all the different rules and procedures and that I didn't know. That has been a learning experience and things that have been complicated.
Yeah. So, well, that's a good question. So is it a Class A building?
Yes, it is a Class A building. Yeah.
And so
the insurance that even like, the movers, I had to go through several movers to meet the insurance requirements of the building.
Okay.
Caterers, I've had to go through several caterers to find one that actually can meet the insurance requirements and be approved by the building. I mean, just things like that were learning experience for me and other people, but that I would definitely inquire about some of those policies and procedures. Now I know to ask about that in the future.
How about after hours access? Is that an issue in the building? Can they get in the front door?
It's it works. My members get digital access, and they actually were installing digital access or had a plan to install about the time that I was negotiating the lease. So that was part of the lease agreement that they had to have that installed. So my members get digital access to the parking garage and the building. But then we do and they have a 24/7 security guard. So when their clients come to the building they have to, if the security guard's not there, they have to have a way for their client to be able to message them to come let them in.
To come up
after hours and on the weekends. Yeah.
Okay. But figured out how to kind of work
But
around.
we
it.
figured out how to do it. Yeah, we figured
Yeah.
out how to do it.
Okay, how do your members find you? I mean, you're co-working, but for a niche. Do they search for you, or yeah?
How does you always that I started doing a year before was hosting networking events for therapists, and before my space was open, I would host them in different parts of the city. And there are probably one of the places where I've connected with Houston therapists the most is there's about 3 different Facebook groups for Houston mental health professionals. And so it's probably about 3 to 4,000 members of those groups.
Okay.
And that's a place, so I've been able to advertise events and advertise the space there. And then I think that, it's starting now there to be word of mouth too, which is really cool. I had somebody do a tour the other day that their therapist recommended them.
Oh, nice.
But, so,
That's funny.
that's the nice thing about, my market is in therapists. So it is very well defined.
Yeah.
And every therapist is a potential referral source.
Right.
So the other thing I do is monthly guest expert webinars on practice building and practice growth. And those are public. And so as a lead magnet, I market those pretty widely, developed an email marketing list.
Okay. Right.
Also,
do you host those? Do you create, you do the content for them? Okay.
No, I don't. Well, I invite experts. Yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So you host them, but don't teach them. Yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah, over the summer we did an SEO with SEO experts and people. Everybody has to do a website.
Yeah,
we've had we either do like a financial series in February. So
yeah, okay.
Things people need to know. So using those things to just spread the word, get people on my email list.
And you're hosting events on site, so people come in and see space and Yeah,
I've been hosting therapy trainings also. So I've had a couple of different trauma trainings for therapists here at the space, which is really nice to bring people in. And, one thing I did last year that I may continue to do in 2025 was to offer the space for local mental health organizations, nonprofits for free. So if they wanted to have a party or an event, that they could have that free here. And it just helps bring more therapists in so they know about it.
The thing I love about this niche is that the professionals tend to congregate, even if it's online, like to your point. And I'm not a therapist, so I don't totally know why, but I hear that across markets, like, well, and you have to be licensed in a particular state. Is that right? So it's state specific. And so inherently very local. So even though it's niche, there are places you can go to find
existing hubs.
Yeah, exactly. Which can be really hard for it can be hard for generic co-working, right? Because it's like, well, your market's so big, but there's no, it's just, right. You're just kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall, whereas you can do really targeted things and host really targeted events for your audience. And so it's just, as long as you're doing the right thing, getting them on your email list. I also wonder if the membership, did you take a class on running an online program?
I did. Yeah. I joined a community for community building.
Nice.
Community experts. Yes. And so that's been really good too. Yeah. That helped me figure that out.
Would you share who it is? Is it?
Yeah. Laura Zug is a community building expert, and her community is called The Hive. And so anybody, she's actually doing a membership drive right now for The Hive. It's a great community. And I learned, I guess I'd signed up for Heartbeat. It's an app. It's like Circle. And they hosted the initial group, Laura Zug and Bree. Her community is called Ember.
Okay.
Right now, I'm not remembering her last name, but they are both experts in building community and just lovely people and great ideas.
Okay, cool. No, I love that because again, but the skills overlap. I often have to talk people into building an email list, but I think maybe because you were surrounded by people doing this online community, it's like, well, you can't have an online community without an email list and you can't build it.
I had a business coach, I think, when I first started to think entrepreneurial. I mean, there's a number of therapist entrepreneurs who, now their thing is to help therapists move into other lines of service and entrepreneurship. I did have a business coach. And one of the things I really learned from her was marketing and the email list idea. Yeah. But I remember from the co-working startup school, the whole, the focus on developing your avatar. And that's key.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
100%.
important.
And you have such a clear one. It's like, it's so easy
Yeah.
when you, yeah. So yeah, I love that about your niche in particular. And some niches are more challenging because people aren't necessarily searching for space. So it's always like, well, because you always think about the Google experience, like what are they searching to, to find you and make sure you show up? Are you running ads or just really focusing on?
And partially that is because when I've done the keyword research, I mean, there's like very few searches for
The
therapist
search
office
volume's
space.
too low. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not worth it. And yeah, so even the SEO, I think they almost have to be looking for us to be able to find it. I want them to be able to find us if they're looking, so that's good. But I don't know. There are a couple aggregators for therapy office spaces.
Ah,
So if you do Google therapy office, for rent or shared therapy office space, they are the top
okay.
ones that come up. So I have tried out a few of those, although I think maybe I've got 6 months, 2 referrals
Yeah.
from the aggregators. So it really does seem to be, finding the therapist communities and that are already existing and letting them know.
Yeah. And then word of mouth, which to your point will start, that flywheel will start moving.
But even within that, it's been helpful to identify even more specifics to the avatar. So even, beyond, I'm looking for therapists who are interested in starting a private practice because that's where they need flexible office space. Therapists who are looking to downsize their office because they either want to do other offerings or they're, cutting back in their numbers of hours, or people who've been all online who want to gradually go back into. So that's really helped me develop targeted marketing because I'm, even really trying to define, what is the type of therapist who would benefit most from the space.
Yep. Benefit and want to join and pay. Yeah. I love on your website, the sections like I had it up before, but like, this is for you if, or this is not for you if.
Right.
A little bit of a tangent, but I see you have virtual mailbox services on your site. Has that been going well for you? I would guess new therapists need a business address. So that's
yes. And that's one thing I've been trying to figure out, like what to do. Right now, I just offer it to mental health professionals who are, in fact, I require them to, have a be licensed in Texas. And I think that's the way I'm going to keep it. Why? Because it's just the mail service is actually quite a bit to manage.
Yeah, when you're doing it. Well, so I didn't ask you that. Yeah, so what does your life look like? Are you still practicing or are you focused?
I am still practicing and I've moved my practice into the space. So I'm, I'm here all the time, trying, run my business, see my clients here, make sure the microwave's clean and the coffee makers were working and, all those things.
Yeah.
And, I'm hoping to be able to bring on a person on site to help. I have a VA I've worked with for the last 7 years or so, but she's not in Texas or Houston. So, but I haven't quite made enough money yet to be able to kind of say, okay, I really need to outsource some of that. So yeah, I'm trying to get my teenage son to help with the mail. And that's been hit or miss.
Yes. I have a 13-year-old and she's always telling me she wants to make money. And so I'm always coming up with these ideas like, oh, you could do this or you could do this for me. She does not like any of my ideas.
Then why didn't you work for the money?
Right. Totally different from wanting the money. Yes.
So I have been doing most of that myself. So
yeah,
but that will be the first thing that I will definitely have somebody on site to be able to get them to help with. So,
and what is that? Well, do you give tours? Is that mostly you? Like you can manage that around? Yeah. So if you had someone on site, what is it that you would want them to do?
Well, I probably would have them doing some of the practice, the psychotherapy practice tasks, returning emails and doing scheduling and phone calls and things also, but also just reception. I mean, community manager stuff. I mean, being able to answer questions, get people's mail set up, answer questions about changing plans, onboard. Yeah, all those things. Yeah. So
I know all those things.
And I would love to put them through the community manager school.
Yeah. Totally. But I would guess you're kind of creating a culture where your therapists know, like, well, we're not 100% staffed, so they take some ownership and
great. Yeah, they really have been great.
Good. Yeah. I mean, so there is a benefit to starting that way, right? Because then they kind of get
Yeah.
used to it and you can ease someone in because you may never have somebody full time, depends.
Oh, yeah, probably. Yeah. Well, the
Yeah.
text too, right? That's, that was one thing I was really helpful from doing the co-working school, being able to think through all the different tech options and to have the resources from the Facebook group to talk about how people were doing it. So
Yeah.
at this point, I have the locks are digital that I can operate from a distance.
Yeah.
That I have my lights and the music system is on a Lutron app. I can control that, and the thermostat for the supplemental AC, I can control all that from remotely. So pretty much I'm able to run most of it when I'm not here. It's great.
Yeah.
And that is definitely, the long-term goal too, is not to have to be here all the time.
To maybe take a vacation. Have you taken a
Yeah,
vacation since you opened?
I have. Yes, I have.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So, and I trust the folks who are working
Yeah.
here. We had one thing with the locks and they texted me and I was able to oh yeah, scheduled it wrong. Here, let's open the door. And so it's worked out well.
Okay, good. Perfect.
Yeah.
It is amazing what you can automate and what Bluetooth devices can do these days. It's
It's fantastic.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, okay, so tell us kind of about, your mindset as an entrepreneur, your experiences. I mean, did you have you had your own practice before you started this? You're already kind of in that mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, since starting your own space and becoming even more entrepreneurial, how is that impacting how you serve your members?
That's a great question. Oh, I'm trying to think about that. And I think trying to figure out one of the things is what stage of practice are they at, and trying to figure out, help them assess the things that they need and their expectations.
Mm,
And I guess what's come to mind for me as you ask that question is, what have been the learning arcs of the last year or the last 6 months? And I think it really is being able to help people as they start a new practice, realizing this is like a 12, as my journey, it's been like a 12 months to get things, a startup going, that's an expectation that people really need to have to be prepared for the work that it takes. So to help them assess that, what are their expectations? So I guess in some ways, entrepreneurially, I probably have leaning into do a little bit more business coaching. And honestly, I have loved connecting with other people doing therapist co-working spaces. So I benefited so much from some of the other people who were doing this first. Ben with Alita in California talked to me. There were several people in the community that talked to me. Ann Rice with Blue House Wellness in Atlanta talked to me. So there actually is a kind of a community out there of other people,
of independent folks who are doing it. Yeah.
Who've been really helpful with their knowledge. And so I think that's something I'd like to be able to do more of too, is consulting for other therapists who want to start up communities and collectives.
And any thoughts about licensing your concept?
Oh, I would love to license.
Okay.
Yeah, I would love to. And I think that the concept really is about hyper local.
Yeah. Right.
So it would be, I wouldn't want to go into somebody else's community and start my version of PractiSage, but I would love to help somebody who's already connected in the community grow their version of PractiSage.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, so down the road, that's where I'd like to take that.
On the path of your entrepreneurial journey, potentially.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so that was on my list of questions. Is I feel like, I mean, that this concept kind of just started appearing. I wonder if it was maybe pandemic related, but we've had a number of people go through the startup school who are doing, and I can't remember if there's anybody else in there while you were doing it, but doing some sort of health related shared space, maybe therapists, maybe other versions of it, which I think is so interesting. Is it a pandemic thing? What are kind of the macro trends you think are making that a thing?
I think just cost of doing business.
Yeah.
That, in diversifying the space of entrepreneurs, right? For me, part of the motivation is I want to help somebody who doesn't have their parents funding their startup to be able to start their own
How do you
practice.
bootstrap? How do you
Yes,
align your
right.
costs with your revenue more? Like
With
you
your
said.
revenue. And I would think that that's probably true in some of these other fields as well, that there's a number of really qualified expert professionals who want to be able to start their own business, but don't have the the backing or the savings to be able to, be able to sign a lease. I mean, just that process of being able to be vetted for the lease, to be able to sign
Yeah.
a lease.
The financial statements and right. Yes.
And not that.
Yep.
So I think it's providing opportunity and an entry point, and then there's there is opportunity in that too. If you open the doors, then that's a way to meet that need and to be able to make it a business.
Yeah.
Um,
How do you feel so far about 4,000 square feet? Does it feel just right? Is it too big, too small?
I think it feels pretty good. I mean, I looked at a lot of places and this was the perfect balance of like, the price was low enough to be able to do more space with the services. They, at first I was worried, do I have, so much space into the lounge, I don't know if people would use it, but the fact that I've been able to use it for events and for trainings has really helped offset that. I do have a group room right now that nobody's really used, that, there'll be a future decision to say, do I keep that? My thought was that people could use it for meetings and group therapy.
Yep. Yeah.
But, you know, if I have a lot of people wanting an office,
Yeah. And it
the
may have
flexibility
better
thing, right?
utilization. Yeah.
Yeah. Then it may have to go from a group room to an
Yeah.
office.
I think that's another advantage of your model with sort of the bucket of hours, is that you don't need as much space as a typical co-working space. And right, it's so hyper local. I think it seems to me that a lot of spaces do in that range, like some even smaller than 4,000 feet, but not a lot doing a lot bigger. So
yeah.
Well,
and at some point, right, when I'm trying to fill in the gaps, I mean, I don't know if this is true of a typical co-working space, but there are therapists who are going to want to work the mornings, or therapists who are going to want the afternoons, or therapists who want the evening. So I think that I can get the 11 offices, or 10, because I take one that I have. I think there's a lot of potential for being able to get pretty well utilized, because there's the need for availability at different times of the day.
Yeah, the day parts, and you'll be able to sort of fill that in.
And evening and weekends. Yeah.
Right. Right. Totally.
The weekends and the evenings have been as busy as the days,
Right. Because people work and need. Yeah.
Yeah. I have several clinicians who have full-time jobs and do their private practice on the side. So they're doing evenings and weekends.
Yeah. Which is another great
side hustle.
Yeah. Of your model, is like they could side hustle it forever until they're ready to do it on their own. And right, to get nights and evenings access to any other type of space is probably almost, impossible.
Yeah. And most other people, I mean, there are a lot of people who are like, hey, we've got an empty office, but it's usually like it's an empty office on Tuesdays.
Right. Right.
So right now, right, people can be like, okay, like I have 4 hours, and if my client wants to come on Tuesday, I can book them on Tuesday. If they want to come on Wednesday, I can book them on Wednesday. So a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, totally. What's the hardest thing that you're trying to figure out right now?
I do need to sell more memberships.
Sales. It's always sales. Yes.
Sales. But it's been interesting, because I'm learning it's just a long sales cycle. So I've had 6 tours in the last few weeks. All, yes, I want to come. And I'm coming in March, April, May.
Interesting.
So people are planning a transition career. And so they're coming looking in advance. And so that's been a good lesson to know. I mean, I think, I probably would have tried to do more pre-sales, although that was hard since I didn't know exactly when I was going to be open,
Right. Yep.
It's always a challenge, but I think, it's just continuing to get the word out.
Yeah. The ramp up can take longer. And again, you have a niche, which is a big advantage, but people aren't Google searching for you. So you have to to pull other lever. And so, that may just take a little bit more time. Do you think, I'm just curious, because you have a PhD, which is obviously requires some tenacity and patience. Do you think you're more patient than a typical entrepreneur, or not?
That's a good question. my husband does business coaching of entrepreneurs, and I would say probably I am more patient than the typical entrepreneur. 'Cause from what I've
Totally.
from what I've heard, I definitely am more the visionary type where I have 1,000 ideas.
Okay.
And the execution is more challenging. So, trying to
Okay. So yeah, you're
out.
kind of you're right.
Yeah.
Typical in that entrepreneurial sense. Yep.
Yes. Yeah. But I do like systems. I just want somebody else to develop them for me. It's like,
Exactly. Yes. Join the club.
I want to use them, but and so I get some pleasure from the process. I mean, I definitely am loving everything I'm doing. At times it's too much.
Yeah.
But the what is great. So that helps a lot. And I would like to be further down the road, but at least the process is super fun.
Yeah. And you can see the path. You're on a path. To your point, you're
On a path.
talking about giving advice to the therapist. Like, it might take longer than you think it will. Prepare for that. I know I'm doing my own 2025 planning, and I'm like trying to do the month by month, and I'm like trying to be really realistic about expectations, which is hard, right? We all want it all to go faster.
Yeah.
Is your
you have to take some pleasure in like laying the groundwork and taking the steps and recognizing each one of those achievements.
The joy in the journey, not just the
joy in the journey. Yeah.
The destination. So is your husband an entrepreneur too? You mentioned that he does business coaching.
Yeah. Yes. And he's been, super helpful. So, they're funny, like the best gifts I love are like spreadsheets. So, he's done all the projections, and we've got a plan for later this month to sit down and look at all the data from the past year and revise the models and all that. So it does help to have somebody, other folks in your corner who can bring in those skills too.
Yep. And just a second set of eyes and perspective on things. I love that he does that. My husband is also a big spreadsheet guy, but he does not want to look at my spreadsheets.
So funny.
Although maybe I should just ask more. But if your husband's a business coach, he's probably just nerds out on business in general. So he's probably excited to get into it with you. And he was, and good that he was supportive of signing a commercial lease. I think that's one of the biggest, can be a big hurdle. It's like, I have to get my spouse on board with the fact that I'm going to sign this commercial lease. I feel like Houston doesn't. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I always say, my husband was like, so if this doesn't work, are we going to live there? Like, what are we going to do with that liability? It's like, it just will work.
I guess that helps that I have the backup plan that I will figure out some way to lease it to therapist or, like
a scrappier version of what you're trying to do just to cover.
Yeah, I could shift the version. Yeah, I can shift away to cover the rent if I had to.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I always try to say. It's like, look, the downside is you have to cover the rent, which if you're doing, and again, I like your model because to staff a space in a traditional co-working model, you need more space, which is a bigger liability. And so you need to really make sure you do everything right. You have the right build out and the right product market fit. But I think there are a lot of advantages of your model. I mean, you're managing it without having someone full-time and may never have someone full-time. But you have, grown-up therapists who are handling that well. So yeah. Okay. Any advice that you'd give to somebody who's thinking about doing this business or another type of niche space that you would, if you're going to talk to your former self, what advice would you give them?
I mean, I think you've got to balance between really doing the homework and the educational piece, which I think is wonderful. The startup school is such a great way to just, get all the information, both just with the course materials, but also with the community. But balance that between you got to take the leap, right? I mean, it helped me to have the business coach because okay, I think you've done you've done all the
the things, Laura. Let's go.
The things. And so that's it's the balance. People err on the other side of jumping in before they really know the lay of the land. And that's an error too. So trying to balance, get the education, get the resources, find out how other people are doing it. By all means, use the communities that are out there. And I'm really a believer that we aren't dividing the pie; we're making the pie bigger.
Totally
together.
Yeah.
Right. So definitely
There's no downside to sharing and learning from each other. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But know that at some point you're just gonna have to go and just take the leap, and it's gonna feel really scary.
Yeah.
It's gonna feel really scary, and that doesn't mean it's wrong.
Yeah. Right. Right. Sometimes it has to feel scary too. Yeah. And you're a therapist. Do you do a lot of self-talk in your brain about?
Absolutely. Totally. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's normal to feel fear. Everybody feels fear, right. It's like, yeah, I think that's one of my, things I still try to remind myself about entrepreneurship. It's like, it's hard for everyone. Everyone has hard days. Everyone has, it's like we get on podcasts, we talk about all the great things, but everybody has their days when they're like, should I be doing this? Should I just get a job? Should I,
You can't move into something new and grow without discomfort.
Right.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
have to
the
live through
definition
it.
of, of stretching, right? Is like new challenges. And it's going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
At times.
Yeah.
But being able to reframe that as like, growing, the discomfort of growth, and it means you're doing the right thing. You're trying something new. You're at your learning edge. You're at your discovery edge, your growth edge. That does help me. Like, okay, but this is just what it is. So,
right. Yeah. This is my brain trying to keep me safe, but it's totally fine. Yeah.
This is my brain trying to keep me safe for good reasons. Thank you, mind. But
yes,
I have chosen this risk because it's meaningful for me and in line with my values. So,
yes. I love it. Well, thank you for sharing your story and all of your updates. And I can't wait to follow along and see what's next.
Thank you. I appreciate the support. And so it's been a great journey. And I'm so glad I didn't have to start out or do it alone. So
100%. Yes, right. We should not have to be entrepreneurs by ourselves. So, and thank you for being a part of the community too. I get the sense like you're excited to give back wherever you can too. So I love that mindset. Thank you.
Yeah. My pleasure.